All right, how's everyone doing? I am Rich CELENZA. Thanks for checking out the Rich CELENZA show. So, I don't think I've ever done a podcast anything like this, or maybe even mentioned it to a certain degree, but does money make you do stupid things? And the reason I bring this up is because I've seen this throughout my life like nobody's business. I have just seen people who either have money or who have come into money, how it just, instead of bettering their life, a lot of times destroys it. And I think a lot of us only look at people that have money as having amazing lives. Okay? Or like, oh my God, they got money, they can do whatever they want to do. I can assure you a lot of people with money are not nearly as happy as you think you are. But on the other end, it's definitely wonderful to have money. You know what I'm saying? Not having money, if you're going to pick the two, you definitely want money, in my opinion. But does that still bring you happiness all the time? Of course it doesn't, but it definitely can bring happiness to another point. Or it actually, I think it relieves a lot of stress having money to a certain degree. I should say it this way. A lot of times when people have a lot of money, they have to keep up with the Joneses, or they want to make more money, which is stressful in its own right. But if you do have a lot of money and you get control of your spending, or you just kind of calm things down, it's nice to know that you have that in your back pocket if something happens, even you getting sick, or you need money for an operation, or you can help others in a time of need, or you want to even go on a vacation, or you want to, maybe buy something for someone else. That's where it's wonderful. But what I'm talking about here is a lot of times when I've seen, I guess, more people come into money or make more money, even in a career, or get maybe a settlement, or maybe get an inheritance, where all of a sudden they start doing a lot of stupid things with their money. And I'm not even talking about buying things. A lot of times when we hear people, oh, I won the lottery, the guy went and bought a house, but he couldn't afford the taxes in 5 years, so he lost the house and he lost all the money he won in the lottery. Yeah, okay, that happens. I'm talking about physically going and doing things, I think, more than anything, because I do think with money, a lot of people who didn't have it in the past like to party, or like to start spending money going out and doing things. And a lot of times I could tell when dudes start getting DUIs, a lot of times I'm like, oh, he may have partied, but I'm like, if he got a DUI, I usually talk to them, people, or I know about them. I'm like, yeah, he just got a raise, or he just got a settlement, or, I mean, don't get me wrong, guys just party too, but I could tell they're out more partying because they can afford the party. What's interesting, I used to say about partying a lot of times, is there's always an excuse to party. If you're broke and miserable and depressed, people are like, I got to go out, man. I got to drink. I don't want to think about this. But then if they're kicking it in the ass, making a lot of money, and they're like, hey, I got all this money, let's go out and party. If I'm not partying, I'm not having a good time. And even back to somebody having money, I just see them doing stupid things just in general. Again, maybe treating people a certain way when they start making more money. They become an asshole a little bit. Also, I see a lot of people who have money starting to buy a lot of drugs and taking things to another level where they become addicted to drugs a lot of times. And I'm not saying poor people aren't addicted to drugs either, but there's that component as well where I think a lot of men, I should say, I don't know about women as much, but maybe they couldn't afford to party the way they always wanted to party. I think people underestimate that. So if you were a kid who didn't have a lot of money and you went to high school and you were just like, lower middle class or even middle class, you couldn't afford to buy maybe certain types of weed you wanted to smoke. You got shitty weed or whatever. And you always wanted to do ecstasy more, or you wanted to do coke, buy good coke, or whatever the hell it is. You couldn't afford it, and then all of a sudden you start coming into money. I mean, you see this in a lot of movies, and I think that's what people, when you see stockbrokers, or when you see maybe even politicians or actors or entertainers, a lot of times you don't realize that they wanted to experiment with a lot of these things. They just couldn't afford it. And you're like, why would you do that now and ruin your life? Well, they wanted to do that. They just could afford to do it now. And I also think a lot of times people, when they come into a lot of money too, back to drinking, end up in certain situations because they think they're a lot more powerful than they are. They may say a lot of things to certain people, or they end up getting the shit kicked out of them. And they could even be in a bar or restaurant. They get lippy, okay? And I'm here to tell you, be very aware of that if you do come into money. And don't think your shit doesn't stink. I don't care how much money you got when you get punched in the face or you get the shit kicked out of you. No money is going to save you, most likely, unless you have security. And if you did, you probably wouldn't be getting the shit kicked out of you. But back to money making you do stupid things, I think it really wraps around a lot of ego. I think people really underestimate when they get money how their behavior changes. And they say, there's a famous saying that I've heard too, when you get money, that's truly who you are. So if you're an asshole, right, if you get a lot of money and you start acting like an asshole, you're an asshole. I think I kind of agree with that to a certain point. I also agree with, if your back's against the wall, that's who you truly are as well. But if you're somebody who comes into a lot of money, or you're making a lot of money and you're very giving and you're very caring and you're kind of, I think that's really the type of person you are. Now, I also think though too, people who come into a lot of money, and I'm going to wrap it up with this, they just don't know what it's like. And I think they get lost in the moment. I think they also a lot of times end up spending a lot more money on other things, not even drugs or alcohol, just overspending and not realizing how to maintain certain things. I think you see this with a lot of pro athletes, or again, people that may have won the lottery, or people that get large inheritance where they're going to go out and buy the big home they always dreamt of buying, not realizing how much money it costs in taxes per year, or thinking they're going to have money forever, or how much it is to maintain the home, and that can go for sports cars and all these different types of things. I've discussed this on my previous podcasts. But be very aware that when you come into money, make smart choices. I think a lot of people think they can make stupid decisions and the money is going to solve the problem, even if something else happens. So it could be even saying, I'm drinking a lot and I'm driving. I'm like, oh, if I get a DUI, who gives a shit? I got all the money in the world. I'll just pay for it and get out of it, and I'll have a driver drive me. Well, then you end up in a car accident and you're paralyzed from the waist down. So how did that work out for you? You know, a lot of things don't always work out the way you think, and money isn't always going to save you regarding a lot of things. But please do not do stupid things when you get money or you come into money. And I've discussed that with even drinking or doing drugs. Please protect yourself. I know everybody out there, for the most part, not everybody, but a lot of people out there do drink. They drink a lot, more than they should. They do drugs. They push the boundary. Just be very aware and knowledgeable that you're going to do that maybe that night, not making the decision later in the night if you're going to drive. Maybe surround yourself with people that can protect you, not rob you or beat you up or take your money. You know, and again, with money too, you better be very aware that the people around you, you know, are there to help you and protect you. And maybe them telling you, hey, back off, I wouldn't do this, I wouldn't do that, hey, we don't like the way you're behaving, or you may have an addiction issue, or all these different types of things. Pay attention to them. Because I do think a lot of times when we do come into money, there's a lot of jealousy, and there's also a lot of pushing others away. Not even meaning to, but that kind of gets wrapped into it as well. That's a whole nother podcast. But got any questions or comments, please feel free to hit me up. I have a Mastering Self-Confidence program where I help men try to live an incredible life affordably. Also, I talk about wardrobe, hygiene, fitness, along with relationship advice. And if you want to know more about me, I'm at richcelenza.com. All right? Don't let money destroy you. So many people really underestimate. They think if they get money, everything is just from there on out going to go their way, and it's going to be a breeze. But a lot of times, from what I've seen throughout my life, quite the opposite. Especially when dealing with relationships. If you're already in one, don't think again, both of you coming into money, it's all of a sudden going to be beautiful. A lot of times I've seen money destroy more relationships than anything else. All right? Take care.